Sabrina 2000s comic, issue 74. Sabrina angsts Salem that she ruined her friendship with Landra. How lonely is she? Based on their dynamic in this comic, she's better off. I really feel like there's no excuse for being upset because sure they had fun the last time they were together, but they did nothing but argue and she's got Gwen and Shinji. It's not like she's settling for her because she's literally her only friend. Then I could understand. And she tells Salem not to tell her aunts because go figure they'd be disappointed in her, even though Shinji pressured her into it. And why should she ever trust him not to tell her aunts on her again? He betrayed her before. Why would she even confide in him anymore? She complains that all Landra's been doing is ignoring her and hanging up on her. I get it, she feels betrayed, but come on, that's not a sympathetic character to the audience. Sabrina did this to Chloe. She could have dated anyone but Shinji, who she knew Sabrina was interested in. She expected this. Sabrina made a mistake, but she's being a bad friend too by tormenting her when she knows she regrets it. Two wrongs don't always make a right. Even Shinji's treating her worse when it was all his idea and his fault. I had no reason to expect him to misbehave, because if he went on a date with Sabrina, he obviously wanted to get back together with her, so why would he even care that Landra broke up with him? Gee, it sure is too bad Sabrina's too stupid to just erase Landra's memory of what she saw. No one even brings up the idea. Idiots! 70s Sabrina erased memories all the time. Why should I care that there's a new web design class that Sabrina's gonna join? Is there anything to say about this? Too many students want to join, so they have to get paired up into groups. Shinji didn't join any of the girls, but is still avoiding Sabrina for no reason to suck up the charm from the comic, as if it had any to begin with. Maybe he's mad at her because she didn't agree to date him. They have to write biographies on each other for their website. Doesn't sound familiar to me. So go figure, Sabrina has to partner up with Shinji because it's fiction. How in the world is class already over? A student says that was short. Lampshading it doesn't make it not forced. Why does Penelope have to be written as a total suck-up to Harvey? It's just annoying all of a sudden. Harvey says Sabrina and Shinji should all meet up after school to get a head start on this pointless assignment. Landra thinks that it hurts to lose both Sabrina and Shinji. Well, she's refusing to let Sabrina reconcile. She wonders why she wants to reconcile with Shinji and not Sabrina. She knows the chances are Shinji initiated the kiss because he's a flirt, and she just hates that Sabrina betrayed her. Why did she ever think Sabrina was trustworthy? Earlier she accused her of wanting to get back with Shinji. She's constantly changing her mind. Oh, but she hasn't made up her mind to reconcile with both of them yet. So that has to be why she doesn't immediately telepathically contact them and say, alright, I'll forgive you both. You know, like a lighthearted kids comic is supposed to have happen. After that waste of a page, more mundane stuff happens. I already know everything about them, I don't need them to recap to me. Harvey doesn't even reveal that he has any siblings we don't know about. Shinji says he was born in the other realm and gets told off for joking. He has a very, very vague flashback about his past. So vague that it's pointless. And he lies that his childhood was nice. If this was Scourge, I'd be raging. Sabrina refuses to tell him how she came to live with her aunts. What a jerk. She could have done it telepathically. So that was a waste of time. She accidentally walked all the way to Landra's house. Okay, that's actually believable. She wanted to, she wasn't paying attention. Her mom slams the door on her after saying she'll let her know she was here. You know, Sabrina could just send a telepathic message to her saying she's sorry. Sabrina's sad that Shinji's over there right now, and she assumes that he never liked her and was just playing a game. I'm so bored. She calls him and tells him she stopped by Landra's house. He admits that he messed up, and he needs to deal with it personally. It always feels out of character when he has these moments. She tries another go at the biography now that the mortals aren't here. But what's the point? They don't make any progress. Don't even have any pages of this. She says her parents divorced, but that's it. He doesn't even like her enough to be honest with her. Sabrina sits in front of a crystal ball and finds out that there's no record of Shinji or his brother in the other realm. So then how did they get registered for school? How did the government not find out and get suspicious? How did his brother buy a house? He'd have to pay a mortgage on it. He'd have to have records. How would his brother not have records when wouldn't he have a job? I guess they're like undocumented illegal immigrants. You'd think that since all witches are being spied on, obviously they would have been caught. So there would be records of them. Shinji would have been seen by the people that are spying on Sabrina. So that's ridiculous. She can stare at a crystal ball to find out stuff she doesn't know. But that's all she can learn about. Somehow. She couldn't find out anything on 4 blade tattoos in the library either. This is a very dragged out plot point, which makes me not take it seriously. After reading the whole comic, it always seems like plot points were introduced way earlier than they had to be, just to be foreshadowing and be built on later. Ultimately, these plot points don't add up to much story content. It might have been better to just introduce them later. I hate story arcs with a fiery passion now. At least bad ones that last longer than 4 issues. They always suck. It's either the Metal Virus arc, this, the Mecha Sally arc, the Iron Dominion of Idiots arc. Maybe comics are better off episodic. Sabrina wants to check out the library and record room in the council building, because Hilda became a council member so she can access it, instead of just casting a spell to get information she wouldn't normally have, because she just used the crystal ball. So she can't do that. Shinji asks Sabrina's aunts how she came to live with them. Sabrina could have just told her that in the first place and spared us padding. And Sabrina also goes behind his back to learn about him. They deserve each other. She's shocked that Shinji and his brother are supposed to be dead. Again, spy witches. Supposedly, Shinji was only 4 when he died, and his brother was 10, when the 4 Blades tried to overthrow the queen. What a coincidence that out of all the witches Sabrina could have met in her witch class, one of them was Shinji. She thinks that they were only listed as deceased by accident in the time of war, and wonders why their parents aren't listed alongside Shinji in the records. Spy witches. If Sabrina was more careful, you'd think she'd get scared enough to freeze time while she was doing this research, because she's probably not allowed to do this. She would make sure that nobody would be able to disturb her. After a giant disturbed her when she was trying to read about spell freeze, but that makes sense instead of causing more forced drama that forgets that she's a witch. This is just so dumb. It was clearly established that Shinji kept getting told off for misbehaving with magic when he and Landra and Sabrina were all sitting together in their school uniforms talking at a restaurant. So unless he was lying, how would he have gotten insulted for his magic use? If people think that he's dead, surely the council would have corrected that. Surely he and his brother would have had restricted rights because they're supposed to be legally dead. I mean, I guess witches could easily zap up social security numbers and identification. She finds some retired tomes, zaps it open, and sees a jerk that bitches at her for being in here, all because she was a complete idiot and didn't effortlessly freeze time like she's done in the franchise before. She learned about Shinji from a book and says idealistically that in the mortal realm you never get away with banning books. She doesn't know much about life. He says that now he has to erase her memory now and make her start her life over from scratch. Pretty melodramatic. Sabrina has plenty of time to use magic against him. Also, why wouldn't he just point to do that instantly, instead of giving her warning? Somehow, she gets hit with magic. Somehow, when she had more than enough time to turn him into a frog or something. This is forced, pathetic writing. How can anyone take this seriously? They're being so swept up in the seriousness, they forget every spell she's able to do? Gee, I wonder if she'll get out of the situation and learn what she wanted to learn eventually anyways, because there's 30 more issues left. Shinji gets shown a baby photo of Sabrina in the bathtub with a rubber duck. I hope he's not actually going to use that picture for the site. He thanks Sabrina's aunts. Sabrina goes home looking horrified, and I wonder why she didn't simply lose her memory of going to that one room. Why would he even consider erasing all of her memories or something? That guy is evil, but it's ridiculously so. Why would he even care about one person finding out about Shinji? Is he so insecure that he thinks that's gonna ruin his whole plan? That doesn't prove anything about what he's up to. She hugs him and says sorry. She says that she learned all about Shinji's past. Someone tried to erase her memory, and all she knows for sure is that she found herself walking around outside, and her amnesia wore off really quickly. At first it seems like a Deus Ex Machina. It gets explained later, but I am relieved. I wish that guy didn't exist then because he was pointless to the story. She hugs Shinji, two of them relating to each other about being orphans. So he's nice to her and kissed her in a sweet moment. I still don't like his design though. And Sabrina's officially reminded me of Chaos Knuckles with how she's constantly said to be more powerful than they expect. Like with Knuckles, I don't mind because the meta reason is immediately obvious, even before it's explained. She's the main character, so she deserves to be more powerful and important. It doesn't make any sense right now that she's more powerful than other witches. It would be great if this was leading up to Sabrina becoming the future head witch. Sure, it would suck if it did exactly what Penders did with the Brotherhood and had them disapprove of her having so much magic. I doubt that would happen because the writer would have to be extremely talentless, and I have faith in this writer to not screw up. So I'm sure that the Council won't behave even worse than the Brotherhood ever did. Then there's a boring page to end the story. I couldn't care less about this mortal story stuff, but I have to read it because it's what leads into the magic stuff. Harvey says they always thought Sabrina's life would be more eventful than that. Somehow, Sabrina starts to agree with Landra that the reason things never worked out between her and Harvey is that she's hidden her life from him. But she should remember that he got greedy when he did find out she was a witch. This writer has no self-awareness if I was supposed to agree with Landra the whole time, when it's not like he's psychic and so he always knew Sabrina's secret. He's immortal, so that makes no sense. It's not like we were constantly shown Sabrina lying to him about magic in this continuity, because she doesn't use magic nearly enough for that. No, usually she's just immortal around him. Sabrina 2000s comic, issue 75. Sabrina remembers that Shinji said he wants to date her, and she's somehow surprised even though it was like that from the start. She wants to work things out with Landra first. Good thing it was explained that in this continuity, mind spells of any kind are illegal, unless the Council is erasing someone's memory. Shinji wants her to stop being sad. After Landra refuses to hear their excuses at first, Shinji pressures her into changing her mind and meeting them at the park after school. Sabrina apologizes to her and says she didn't plan for it to happen. Landra wastes time yelling at her. This is why I don't like this comic. I really hate the tone. I really hate any scene with a tone like this. I never really felt like she was in love with Shinji. Most of the time, whenever she interacted with him, they weren't getting along. She goes too far in Sabrina's eyes when she calls Sabrina selfish. Sabrina did want both guys wrapped around her fingers, to be fair, but I wish she didn't say, "Oh, boo-hoo." It makes her look like a terrible person and makes me wonder why we're expecting to see her as a sympathetic character from now on. Shinji tells Landra the truth, taking responsibility, and makes her cry. He thinks that if Sabrina and Landra are going to be friends again, then he has to be the jerk and turn Landra against them. So he admits that he wanted to be with Sabrina and didn't want to date her anymore. Then Shinji says they can work on things together, confusing Sabrina. Why did he do that when obviously that makes Sabrina think he doesn't really love her? Landra breaks up with him, and Sabrina thinks that Shinji knew she would say that, because she's been naive and idealistic since the 70s comic, so it's in character for her to give him too much credit with no evidence. She miraculously realizes that Shinji was giving her the chance to have the upper hand and dump him, when that could have easily not happened. Sure, it's a good thing that Sabrina realized this, when normally she's a complete idiot. For once, the writer didn't go the cheap drama route. Landra feels much better now, and forgives Sabrina, calling Shinji childish. Why didn't she know he was childish and she could do better from the start? She knew him. She says she hates fighting with Sabrina and they hug. Then a monster jumps out of a tree randomly and pounces on Landra. And all the time Shinji was wondering what that was, he obviously could have pointed at it and frozen it. Shinji finally uses magic to attack the monster, and because forced drama, his magical attack doesn't instantly kill it. There's absolutely no reason that he wouldn't have frozen it in time, or literally frozen it. They could also turn into a frog. Why would he run away instead? He could also fly over it, then it'd be safe to plan his next move. Instead, fortunately Sabrina and Landry instantly freeze and trap it the next time the heroes plan against it. Huh, the action scene writing is surprisingly better than the modern Sonic comics. If they're not immune to magic being used against them directly, then there really was no saving this. They decide to get out of here before the magic wears off. It won't wear off. Why would they ever think it would wear off? If they think it can wear off, why didn't they just point to completely disintegrate them? Sabrina thinks they should tell people about the creature because somehow, something about it didn't seem right. You'd think they would take a picture of it with their cell phones, just in case no one believes them. They consider telling someone about the somehow dying mana tree after all. The dying mana tree that, Sabrina could have taken a picture with a cell phone. It makes sense that she didn't because she and Landra agreed to not have anyone find out about it, because they planned on fixing it themselves. But since Sabrina started losing faith in Landra's ability to fix the tree pretty quickly, you'd think she would have just warped to the tree and taken a picture of its dying leaves anyways. As I wonder why no one just poured a potion on the mana tree to cure its leaf problem instantly. Hilda says that the council is already aware of these creatures, but they didn't just warp them all to them and instantly kill them with their magic, or cast a spell together to kill all of them at once, because they're not good for anything. They're determined to put an end to these attacks, but that's not what I'm seeing. They could just freeze time and search for all of the monsters and kill them, or at least be merciful and turn them into frogs. So there's no reason to take this writing seriously. Hilda gets told about the mana tree, and she says that's supposed to be immortal. She says Landra just misinterpreted what she was feeling when she felt the mana tree fading, even though she's a green magic expert. And Salem doesn't believe their evidence either because forced conflict, saying that there's tons of leaves on the ground, and maybe the dead leaf was from another tree. This is reminding me of when Bunny, the other M comic, assumed that Sonic just made up its actual past in the other universe. So this is literally bad fan comic writing. I hate this. So telling Hilda was a complete waste of time that pisses off. There's absolutely no excuse for writing this scene then. Every single time she has an opportunity, she betrays Sabrina. She says that the queen is linked to that tree and guards it. Okay, but wouldn't that mean that the queen is intentionally sabotaging the tree, or doesn't give a shit about it anymore? Because we assume she has omnipotent powers like every other witch. Maybe she's tired of witches existing. Salem's condescending and thankfully gets told, I don't need any lectures from a cat. He wanted to overthrow the council. No reason for him to have too much faith in the queen here. Shinji worries his brother by telling him that Sabrina knows they're the sons of the renegade blades. Why is he telling him this? I know he's his brother, so he trusts him as a confidant, but he has nothing to gain. I think it's only happening to cause drama and waste our time. He's told that restarting the Four Blades movement would be suicide, then why have him try if you know it's stupid? Shinji reveals that his parents knew a horrible secret about the queen and were trying to save the kingdom. We know witches can warp people to them, and warp to people, so he could warp to the queen or warp her to him anytime he wanted. So there's no excuse for having to start a Four Blades movement if there isn't an explanation that you can't warp the queen to you because of a spell, and you can't warp to the queen because of a spell. But show me a line where they say that any of that is the case. So it's a plot hole. So there's no reason that this plot point would still be around. I also have to assume that they're so attached to their parents that they think it would be wrong to just zap up replacement parents and erase their memory of the fact that something happened to them. The replacements would be pretty confused that the legal system thinks they're dead, but then they would just move on with their lives anyways. Is it realistic that a bunch of children wouldn't just cast a spell to get new parents? I can understand older people having a more complex morality, but whether they're still orphans or not entirely depends on whether that's realistic. Shinji says he could tell everyone the truth just because Sabrina believed him. What a moron. Especially since, why not just cast a mind control spell so that people are guaranteed to believe you? Apparently Shinji can do whatever he wants with his magic, like expose it to mortals for days on end, so why doesn't he just do that? His brother reminds him he's 16 and says they're lucky to survive. So he's gonna be a coward even though he's literally omnipotent. Of course, they don't know what the Queen's secret is. And they won't just cast a spell to find out that information for some reason, even though little Sabrina was able to cast a spell to find out where Betty and Archie were. This comic is so stupid. This seems to convince Shinji to calm down because they wouldn't know what they're fighting for, even though he does know what they're fighting for. Revenge for what happened to their parents. A teenager would totally want to do something like that. And if Sabrina can spy on Shinji, then he could spy on the Queen. So, you'd think a lot of people would have found out what her secret is by now. The Four Blades movement would have found out her secret. Why is Mortal High School the only place where Sabrina and Shinji can be open about their feelings for each other? The other girls are jealous, and Amy feels sorry for Sabrina. Harvey's cold with Amy because Sabrina's dating Shinji now, and he thinks all of Amy's lessons have been for nothing. Yeah, Amy's right, no they haven't. Because he could use those lessons on how to be a good boyfriend on other girls. Even if she's the only one he wants, there's no realistic way that he would only ever want Sabrina for the rest of his life. And she does have a good point when she says that unlike Sabrina, who has a new crush every month, she's always wanted to be with him only. He just wants to focus on basketball and doesn't want anything to do with either girl. Amy cries, and Gwen's surprisingly nice by comforting her. She asks why Harvey is such a jerk sometimes. Gwen lampshades her seeing anything in Harvey because he's just immature and antisocial, and Amy's gorgeous, so she could do better. Amy reveals out of nowhere that she loves Harvey because he cared about her when she wasn't beautiful. Out of nowhere, she reveals that she always had to wear some headgear because of an overbite when she was younger, and the kids would be mean to her because of it. I'm really impressed that the girl who only exists to bully Sabrina actually has a tragic backstory. Of course, her being bullied herself doesn't justify her being a bully. It just makes it inexcusable that she became worse than them. I like her headgear actually. It reminds me of a Bluetooth and a headband combined. She actually looked interesting back then. The artist didn't do the best job of telling me why it looked humiliating. It was only humiliating because she was teased for it. And Harvey stood up for her. After a boy has some forced, stilted dialogue, he accurately predicts that when she's done with her headgear, she'll be the most beautiful girl around. And the kids get shamed because Harvey was the most popular girl around at the time, and they don't want him to hate them. And then it changed, apparently. Amy says they didn't used to be shy and awkward. If the writer knows this, why was it written anyways? It makes no sense that he would become shy and awkward out of complete nowhere. Especially since the comic later on explains why he's like this. And that explanation would have been the case his entire life. It's nice that she actually does love him. I never expected that. But it was common sense to have this backstory of hers be explained as early as possible. Maybe I would have rooted for her more, because Harvey's clearly a bad boyfriend for Sabrina. Hilda fortunately reveals that she was lying and thinks the girls were right, and it was tough on her lying to them. But why did she have to lie? What a bitch. Don't think I'm being too harsh on her, because she completely betrays Sabrina later on. Throughout the whole comic, she's done nothing but do stuff that annoys Sabrina, and unlike in the 70s, she doesn't ever get comeuppance and get called out on it. There's no reason for her to not tell her she believes her. It's not like they're being spied on, and she thinks they're being spied on all the time, because if that was the case, the entire council would have known about the conversation. She asks for an audience with the Queen, and she meets the Blue Woman. So they went with a twist that we all saw coming from a mile away, that of course, the council member who keeps wanting to have lunch with Sabrina has something special going on with her. The whole time it seems like she was the opposite of evil and was trying to get Sabrina to overthrow the evil lady with the green dress. It always seems like she was mentoring Sabrina in secret to be a hero to rise up against someone I actually hate. Even though she could just give a letter to literally any witch that walked by her and tell them to warp the person to her and get rid of him. Hilda says it's been a fulfilling challenge to have her job, but the Queen's job has to be a lot harder. She asks her if everything's alright with her job, and the Queen uncharacteristically acts offended. Hilda apologizes and says that if she ever needs a friend, she has her. You'd think she would have already been friends with the other council members for thousands of years. How did she not think she could confide in anyone before? Thankfully, the Queen looks sad and wants to tell her the truth after briefly looking suspicious of her. So if she's capable of wanting to tell someone the truth, it makes no sense that she won't confide in any of the other council members. Why confide in the new person and not the people you've been working for thousands of years? If she's even able to want to confide in her, why didn't she send a mass email to a whole bunch of other people to confide in them? Even if someone was spying on her and that's why she didn't tell people about the problem, if they were spying on her, all they'd see if she was trying to send a mass email is her typing on a computer. They wouldn't know what she was typing. The story ends with a monster crashing through the ceiling to threaten them. I can understand a second of being intimidated, but after that she'd just point and freeze it. So this story was about, due to a contrivance, Sabrina and Shinji have to do biography on each other. So this forces them to try to find out about each other's past. Even though they're supposed to be friends, so you'd think they would have tried to do this a long time ago. I guess they didn't care enough about each other to do that before, because they're such self-absorbed teenagers. And it pads things out because they're both too reluctant to tell each other their past, which makes no sense for Sabrina. And you'd think Sabrina would just point to learn all about Shinji's past, not go through melodrama and have a Deus Ex Machina to save her from amnesia. The only thing that matters in the other story is Landra and Sabrina made up.